Hello, everyone. Welcome today to another episode of the SubQuery customer interview series. And today I'm very lucky to have on board Anton all the way from Russia. It's a pleasure to have you today. Anton, how are you doing?
Hey everyone, I'm doing great.
So Anton, you are the CEO and founder of Nova Wallet. Nova
Yep,
Wallet's one of the most prevalent wallets out there in the Polkadot ecosystem. And so can you please tell, for those that haven't heard of Nova Wallet, which is probably quite unlikely, can you please tell everyone what Nova Wallet's all about?
sure. So No Wallet is a native iOS and Android applications for Polkadot and Kusama ecosystem. It's kind of amazing because we already have the multi-chain support for the ecosystem. Like we support parachains, we support chains in the ecosystem like Edgeware and others. And basically, we are focusing on providing convenient user interface for consumers to benefit from all this variety of features available in the Polkadot ecosystem.
Yeah, so you're a wallet entirely focused on Polkadot.
Yes.
What are some of the weird parts about Polkadot that change the way you might build Nova Wallet compared to how you would if you were building a more generic wallet for Ethereum or for other networks?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So I think the main difference, if you take a look on the Polkadot ecosystem and, for example, building the mobile application for Ethereum, right, is how mature can Ethereum be right now. So in Ethereum, the multi-asset is pretty straightforward. So we have a standard for the tokens, how they should be created and how they should be treated from the mobile side perspective. And we also usually deal with only one network, which is Ethereum or Ethereum clones, which have the similar implementation, right? However, when we are dealing with a Polkadot ecosystem, there are more challenges and more opportunities, let's say, right? Because we are dealing now with a multi-chain universe, how it's now popular to say, which means that every chain is pretty much unique in terms of communication with it, right? So it's kind of a challenge for developers to understand the logic behind this network and to implement the required support to communicate with this network. So that's pretty much the most, like the biggest challenge if you are about to develop an application for Polkadot ecosystem, because your app now is needed to communicate not only with one chain, but with 20 or 50, or if you're talking about like the end of 2022, we're talking about like 100 of parachains launched, right? And it's a challenge from both like user experience, how you display all this information, and like a technical side, like how the app can handle all of these communications.
Yeah, no, that's definitely very true, and it's something that we face at SubQuery every day, right? Every parachain is just slightly
Yeah,
different, but just enough so that it makes things a bit more difficult than it could be, right?
exactly.
These standards. And would you say that your focus on Polkadot means that, the Nova team are willing to go that next level down in terms of understanding what's going on in each chain and how they work? That gives you an advantage over other more generic wallets out there.
Yeah, definitely. Because by the time we learned how to deal with the substrate, we almost received an experience to build our own parachain now. But yeah, ability to focus on Polkadot ecosystem and how exactly the functionality works in each of these parachains allow us to understand how we can wrap it into the convenient user interface and provide it in the most user-friendly interface for the end users, which potentially can expand the user base and expand the ecosystem itself of the Polkadot.
Absolutely true. To expand the ecosystem and to invite more
Yeah,
users into it, it has to be easy to
exactly.
use, right?
Yeah,
Do you have a
because
lot of UX designers on your team that like focus on this?
yeah, sure. So in our team, usually everyone is involved in thinking how we can wrap up the certain feature in a nice interface, because all of us are basically users of a Polkadot ecosystem. So somebody is running validator node, somebody is just staking, somebody is holding like tens of assets from the different networks. But mostly, of course, we have a designer who is focused on working like full time on making the mockups for mobile application. And usually I'm mentoring him as well in terms of like how to wrap this in the best practice in the crypto
Mm.
space.
Yeah, because it is quite difficult for designers to And well, for everyone in this ecosystem, right, to get your head around
Yeah,
how it all works and how it all plays together, right?
exactly.
It's very new. So I'm curious to know a little bit more about how you're solving the challenges that you face due to the variations across these different parachains. How do you address that in a way that's scalable?
Yeah. So what we have did so far with this multi-chain infrastructure, let's say, um, we have developed Node Wallet in a way that we can feed it with certain information of the configs for the chains, like the minimal information of a runtime, which we store in open source repository on GitHub and maintain it regularly. um, the node where it can understand how to talk with each of the network just by having this, I don't know, 50 strings of the JSON for each network.
Mm,
And it's enough for nowhere to understand like how to make transfers in this network, how to fetch the fees for the operations, and so on. So no wallet is advanced enough to parse, to fetch and parse the metadata from each of the parachain. But of course, it can be used for some extents. Whenever each of the parachains decides to do something unique, something special, for example, in terms of the balances, or if they decided to do like a multi-asset in their network, that means for us that we need to implement it almost from scratch, this individual support. So yeah, long story short, we have implemented certain approach to handle this. However, there are still some challenges and they are ongoing because ecosystem is still trying to understand how to do certain things, how to do multi-asset in each network, because one parachain implemented in one way, another parachain implemented in completely different way. And we as the developers needs to solve this kind of challenge. The good thing, though, that ecosystem is already getting more and more mature. Take a look on the NFTs, right? The Bruno from Remark project is trying to do impossible job of uniting the way how everyone should work with the NFTs by implementing this common and advanced NFT palette,
mm.
which ideally should every parachain use in the future, like in 1 or 2 years. So yeah, there is a hope for the Polkadot ecosystem to simplify certain things for developers, but otherwise, it's an interesting challenge to face right now.
Yeah, and it means it's an advantage for the teams like yourself that have gone through that experience of learning about it. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear more because we've been working with you guys for a long time, and one of the things we've been working on is a common kind of API for a lot of these parachains. Do you mind sharing a bit, or maybe describing what that is to people listening?
Oh, sure. So one of the huge game changer when you're designing the client application for the blockchain is an ability to have all your transaction history shown in the app, right? So you understand every operation which your account has done in the lifetime. However, most of the blockchains, I even cannot recall any of the blockchain who can provide a transaction history from
Mm.
its native API because it's pretty consuming
It's a linked
request, right?
list, really. It has to like search
Yeah,
for every.
exactly. So there is always a need in a data source or in indexers, right, in the ecosystem. And we were very happy when we found out that there is some project, the SubQuery project in the ecosystem born. So we immediately reached SubQuery team to start to work on the common API, which will basically allow us to fetch this huge amount of data in a fast way and in a
Mm,
reliable way. So yeah, that's how generally we faced a need to build a common API because with those expansion of new parachains coming out, we need to define this set of the requests which we can reuse for every parachain, right? In order to provide ecosystem possibility to implement this like game changer features such as
yeah.
transaction history.
And like getting a list of transaction histories, that's pretty standard use case for a lot of
Yeah.
applications out there, right? It's like whether you're looking at a wallet like Nova Wallet, or if you're looking
Hmm.
at an NFT dashboard where you want to see the previous transactions related to that NFT, or various other things like scanners, for example, and seeing the list of transactions in a particular account, showing that list of what's happened to an account over time is quite a key kind of data point. that you need. So I know that we've been working on this for some time, and essentially we're looking at now taking that to the other parachains. We've designed this in a way that it should work with the other parachains with pretty minimal changes. As in the name, it's a common API. So that's something that we've been really looking forward to working with, or we've really enjoyed working with Nova Wallet on, because of your expertise in the space and because you know exactly what you need, because you do this every day. You have that
Yeah.
day-to-day experience of building a wallet and building one of the best wallets in the Polkadot ecosystem. Apart from the user interface, what do you think makes a good wallet or a good wallet application?
Yeah, I would say that if we will take this user interface like pretty buttons and so on, is of course like a reliability. So whenever you open an application and whenever your data loads in a very fast way and in a reliable way, so you kind of open the app and it always shows you some data. Even if something goes wrong, it always shows you the data. So that's very important. And you can do it in a different way. So you can do some caching on the mobile app side, so you can show some data before the new ones has loaded and to show that one. However, once again, you need to have a mature and reliable data source. And of course, the blockchain itself is the source of truth, right? However, as we discussed earlier, the blockchain API, in terms of that, like a data fetching, can be very limited to saturate such use cases like transaction history and so on. One of the good example would be the staking features, right? Because in order to do something very trivial from one hand, for example, to fetch all your pending rewards or rewards which has not been paid for your account, it sounds like a trivial thing, right? But in reality, if you try to fetch this request from the blockchain, it will go through like thousands of requests, because you need to fetch like in what eras this particular staker was staking,
Mm,
basically. What is the controller account? What is the reward destination? What is the validator? And there are so many details which goes down to thousands of requests which needs to be made from a mobile device. And yeah, in the end of the day, once again, because you are calling this amount of the request, it can take some time. Like sometimes, if you do it natively on the blockchain, you will have to wait like a minute, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just to
yeah.
finish this request to fetch your
It's
pending
like that in
reward.
Polkadot.js, you just have to
Yeah,
wait for the page to load. You're just sitting there waiting, like, oh.
yeah. So, however, if you will tune if you replace just one piece of information using the data source like SubQuery, you would be able to minimize this response time to 2 seconds, 5 seconds, and you have all these pending rewards, which is amazing. And the good way to do so is to find a balance, because you need to not rely on all these data sources. However, you need to come up with a strategy in which you will basically trust on a certain degree, right? And if something goes wrong, you need to fall back to the blockchain. So you need to design your solution in order to kind of understand how you will fetch data and from where.
Mm,
But once again, having a data source can saturate the user experience by a lot. For example,
yeah.
for pending rewards, like seconds instead of 10 or 20 minutes.
And it's very important for a consumer application because you need to have that data
Yes.
fast. People don't want to wait. People
Yes,
live their life not waiting for things, and
yeah, because for the user, it's just a number,
yeah,
right? It's just a list, and you need to take this in mind, because lots of the users doesn't even understand that this is a blockchain application, that how accounts are managed, like they have a key pair and so on, this weird number of words. They always set the expectations that if you're a wallet, you're probably a company with the servers and
mm,
all these rewards are paid by you. You know what I mean, right?
yeah, yeah,
But
no,
but in
yeah,
but in reality, they own their data, right? They own their privacy and security, and there is only them and the blockchain, and basically that's it. But once again, because all of these financial application exist like a bank's apps with a support 24 hours per day, right? The expectations set are very high. So
yeah,
that's why we need to eliminate such delays in the
yeah.
features like pending rewards.
Definitely makes sense, right? The consumers, although I think most in our space right now understand it's a blockchain application and kind of have an idea of what the how tricky it can be to build one that is intuitive and easy to use. The kind of the golden standard, the target for every team out there, including Nova Wallet, I think, is to build an application where people don't actually kind of realize it's on the blockchain.
Yeah.
It's not immediately obvious, and until you dig down, it's so easy to use. It's just like something that you would use every other day as a consumer. So there's two kind of competing interests there, and bridging that gap is quite a challenge, which Nova Wallet has exceeded at. But
Yeah.
it is that combination of using direct on-chain messaging, using pre-indexed data where best, and using different providers. And that's one thing that we're doing at SubQuery, is doing a lot of effort into supporting enterprise customers like Nova Wallet. You need absolute reliability, and over the space of running our hosted service over the last 7 or 8 months now,
Yeah.
we now have experience in what goes wrong, and we're just finishing up some pretty cool features to allow you to have multiple redundant clusters of data and load balance and fallovers. So there's a lot of improvements we're doing specifically because we're getting customers that are so big now that they can't afford this to lose or to go down,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's top of our mind. So yeah, it's one of the best things about working with a team like Nova Wallet, is that you absolutely have to push yourselves to the limit to make sure you reach that 99.9% kind of service level guarantee
Yeah.
for that wallet. There's nothing worse in a wallet or in in an exchange where suddenly we can't, withdraw or deposit, or you can't exchange, or you can't do anything like that. That's really, people don't like that in our
Yeah,
industry, don't they?
exactly.
And
And with this ecosystem growing, we need to also understand that the variety of the use cases are also growing. Like, we have built the No Wallet and continue to build it like as a consumer oriented application, right?
Mm.
But what if some team will come up with some enterprise level grade application, right? They still need those use cases with transaction history and so on. However, they need to like be 100% sure that they would be able to show this piece of data, and that everything would be 100% or close to 100%, like 99.9 reliability in their services. So it's kind of a race, right? Because
Mm.
the ecosystem is growing and we need to keep this pace of evolving the technology in it.
But it's also new, right? And so you kind of, like, when you think about how new the technology is, you can understand when things aren't
Yeah,
99.999% up.
yeah,
But it doesn't change that they should be. It's a very interesting world that we're in right now, where we're building this brand new ecosystem, and a lot of people coming from one that is, 10 years old.
yeah.
It's been running for 10 years, and they've done a lot more kind of work there, but is struggling to scale. And we're building a new ecosystem where hopefully those challenges will be solved. Yeah, that's exciting. And that's one thing about Nova Wallet, is there are all these other new things in Polkadot. For example, the staking dashboard that Nova Wallet puts a lot of effort into making simple.
Yeah,
I think that's quite a cool thing that Nova Wallet does, is really put effort into making or try to simplify some pretty complex concepts. And you guys do a really good job of that.
yeah. The staking analytics or staking statistics were a big challenge as well, because that also allowed us, like as a teams, to understand how we can optimize and improve our solutions, right? Because we found it's been a journey for us to develop and test this solution between SubQuery and No Wallet teams, because we faced lots of interesting situations. But yeah, it allowed us to improve our solutions to, once again, to keep it growing.
It's always important, right? You always have to design and develop solutions in partnership with your customers.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you guys do that every day when you talk to your community. I know one thing that people listen to this call, Anton is prolific in the Polkadot and Kusama communities. Like, I think everyone knows Anton, but for a good reason. I think that's something that I'd like to make sure that people remind themselves, always talk to their customers about how they can improve something, how they
Yeah.
can help them better, what new solutions are out there that could potentially solve problems. A last question, I always ask this last question, Anton. I'm
Hmm.
curious what you say is, uh, you've been in this space for some time.
Hmm.
You've seen a bit here. You've kind of seen how it goes. What bit of advice would you give to someone that's thinking about jumping into the blockchain, or maybe more specifically the Polkadot ecosystem? What bit of advice would you give someone considering getting involved?
As a developer, right? Or as
As
an
a developer
engineer?
or an entrepreneur or anything?
Oh, wow. It's interesting because if we compare the state of the ecosystem like nowadays and 2 years ago, that's a completely different stories, right? Because if you will try to educate yourself today, you will find tons of materials available, like from Parity, from different parachain teams. Even on SubQuery, you can find like lots of educational materials, lots of educational projects which you can basically study, take a look, and understand how things are working, right? So I cannot even come up with an just single answer because there are so many educational materials right now. But for sure, it would be to try to dive into the community as soon as possible.
Mm,
Do not hesitate and do not be shy to ask questions because the Polkadot community is very helpful. If you
yeah.
will join to the like element groups, like for example Subset Technical, you can basically ask the core developers of the Polkadot and Kusama daily on any
Mm,
like topic. That's extremely helpful, and the community is always there. They can provide you either an answer or a link to the material which can be used to understand like an answer. So yeah, I would suggest to join the core communication points in the ecosystem, which would be like the element groups to study some main topics. If you want to study Substrate, there is like tons of educational materials now available on the Substrate website.
we've been hiring a lot of people who've just joined our company, and I always say to them, look, no one's an expert in blockchain. Like,
Yeah,
this is also new, that really it's not about what you know, it's about how quickly you can learn. And you're absolutely right. There is so much material out there. Some of it's hard to find, but you can ask the right people, and everyone's looking forward to seeing what's been built because we're all building this together and we want to see what comes out of it. So yeah, very true, very true. Just ask out there, just ask. Hey, it was really good to talk to you today, Anton. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and we're looking forward to doing a lot more together in the future. Thank you very much for joining us.
likewise. Thank you so much, James.
Cheers, Anton.
Cheers.